So here we are, the final video of my 2022 season. We're at Brands Hatch on a cold November morning. Put a lot of pressure on myself here to go out there and get some good results today, because if the results do go my way and I do get the better of Ian on this day in November, I will be the class champion. But that essentially means it will go down to the last race. Whatever I do in that first race could technically be overturned in the second race if Ian did the same thing. So a huge day here. It's going to go down to the last race of the season, who can be class champion. Ian and I are essentially dead level on points here going into the last round of the season. So a big qualifying session coming up here at Brands Hatch. I need to put in a good lap. I've got a lot of pressure on my shoulders because I know I don't do very well around this track, and it's my local track, it's the one I love the most, but for some reason or another I can never put the result together. So here is the qualifying lap that would set my best time within the session. Once more, not a particularly good lap, quite safe, a lot of margin around most of the track, lots of opportunity for me to go better in the race here. But I guess in the back of my head I was thinking, just put in an okay lap time, get yourself away from the very back of the pack. That will mean that you need to do some overtaking, and put myself in the ballpark for the race. But you can see already quite a few missed apexes, not particularly great through there, and even on my quickest lap here I'm indicating and getting out of the way. But I can't use the excuse of traffic really. Throughout this whole session I didn't really encounter much traffic, I'll be honest. Even though that this is a small track with lots of cars on it, I couldn't use that as the reason for not going particularly quick. I just didn't hook it up. I just couldn't get the whole lap together, unfortunately, and this was my best lap. It wasn't great, and it wouldn't even be enough for class pole, as Ian would go faster than me in qualifying and take the class pole position, meaning going into the race he is in a much better position to go and win this class championship if he puts it all together. So now I've really put the pressure on myself here to go out there and get a good result in this first result of the day. Me giving a little bit of a thumbs up to Ian here. We're not that far behind him, we're starting directly behind him as we qualify 2 positions back. But really now I need to get my head down, get past him and try and get the class victory. So exiting the assembly area onto the racetrack, getting some of that rubbish that you get on your tyres through going across that pit lane entrance. And here we go, formation lap, bit of weaving from side to side. I know it doesn't really do anything, I just do it as much as anything just to get my brain warmed up. It's like we're about to go racing. Well, you'll see that didn't really pay off, because I ended up leaving a bit of a huge gap here on the restart, or the start, because you can see in front of me here a big lockup from Graham Richardson in his Civic. For some reason or another I thought something was happening here, so I sort of got on the brakes too, and well, that means I get a bad start. Callum Perfect at the inside, I think someone else is at the inside right now as well. We had some fast cars starting right at the back of the grid, so did my best to try and go around the outside of Callum here at Druid's hairpin on lap number 1. You can see Ian is directly in front of us here. This is for the championship, so he's going to go side by side with Callum Perfect here. Unfortunately there was a little bit of contact between the two of them there. That slightly distracted me. I didn't get the best exit out of this corner, but regardless we're still on Ian's tail. He had a much better initial start, but then this little bit in the middle of the lap I've definitely caught up to him through here, and I think we're going side by side with someone through this part here. Yeah, one of the fast cars that started right at the back, the Audi A3. He was sort of mustangling his way through the field, so I sort of got out of his way and let him get past. He was going to get past me at some point, but I guess he got past a lot quicker than he expected. So he's through. Now a couple of cars in between myself and Ian. You can see that white Golf, which is really quick, and then there's a BMW that dives up the inside of me here. Maybe didn't quite expect me to brake so late, because it was quite an ambitious lunge up the inside here. That meant I went super defensive here going into Druid's hairpin, and if you look to my left you can see there's a car coming around the outside of me here. This is a Vauxhall Corsa, and he does a good job of me here. He gets from the outside of me at Druid's and has the inside line through here and takes the position. So quite a scruffy lap there. We were right behind Ian at this point 1 lap ago, and we've sort of messed it up in the following lap, lost a few positions, not playing my cards right. And I'm behind the Corsa, who was a quick driver. He hadn't actually had a particularly good qualifying session, so the following laps, we started to work together, I guess you'd say, and then I tried to look to the inside here. You can see I was quite late on the brakes here, but then couldn't carry that mid-speed corner, and of course it goes around the outside of me here. I guess I kind of went for it, then backed out of it, and then the course managed to get back through again. Now we're side by side through Druids once more. I think someone's up my inside here. I think it's one of the quicker cars. Could it be Ken Angel? I think it might be Ken Angel in his green BMW coming to overtake me here, but we keep the position for now. We look down the inside of Ian, and I saw the Corsa get through pretty quickly, so my thought was I'm just going to go through and do the same thing. So quite bold to go for an overtake side by side through here. We're still side by side. You can see from this camera shot here, Ken Angel just behind us, James Seal just there as well. I needed to make this position stick because I knew that James was going to be right there as well. He was going to be super quick, so we get past Ian in the straight, and then we'll see from the other camera angle Ken Angel managing to get past me here as well. So let's have a quick replay of all of that. See Ken in the mirrors there. He was looking one way, the next to try and get past Ian as well. We're side by side with Ian at this point here, still side by side with him for a number of corners here. With some really great racing with him, always clean and respectful racing with Ian and James. You can always appreciate that, so that's why it's always great to race with them. So we're still side by side here, and then eventually my extra few horsepower kick in here, and getting a slightly better run through clearways definitely helps me out there. So Ian was tight to the inside there, so his run through clearways was never going to be as good as mine. So as long as I kept it side by side, I was always going to get the better run on the exit and get the position. And of course I have a little bit more horsepower top end, so that's always going to help kick in later on down the straight as well. Now Ken Angel gets past here, but then he isn't particularly quick over the next lap here, so I keep, I guess you'd say, outbraking him and getting better runs through the corners. You can see he's quite slow mid-corner, but he's got a lot more power than me, so in the straights he's going to fly away. But it was definitely hampering me here because I was looking in the mirrors. Directly behind me, of course, was Ian and James Seal, both of them right behind me here. You can probably see from this camera angle, well, we see Callum Perfect going off and hitting the barrier, unfortunately, from that one. And he would unfortunately retire from the race, and it was just bring out the safety car. Thankfully, Callum was all fine. Unfortunately, there was some damage to his car, but the main thing that was Callum was all right because it was quite a big hit rear on into the barriers. So this is a quick replay here. You can see directly behind me as we're trying to battle with Ken. You can see the Seals right behind me here, putting the pressure on. They're battling amongst themselves, but because Ken in front of me isn't maybe hitting all of the right apexes here, you could say, you can see both the Seals in the background keeping up and actually catching back up, but eventually there would be the safety car, and then this would be the safety car restart, and this was going to be incredibly important in terms of whether I'd finish ahead of Ian in this race or not, because if I made a bad restart and dropped behind Ian again, I was going to be right in that battle with James and a number of cars directly behind him. Alex Martin was in that battle, as well as a couple of the other drivers that were new to the CMMCS for this round here. So I knew it was very important to get a good restart here, so I was trying to gauge when the cars in front were going to go. I think I got a pretty good restart here. I'd actually got a better restart than Ken in front of me here, but he of course gets the jump as he's got a lot more power. As you can see, blasts off and gets that Corsa down to turn one. But considering what I could do, because you can't overlap under the safety car, and considering where I was in that last corner, I think that's actually a pretty good restart. Right behind Ken, put the foot down when I needed to, and like I say, closed in on the Corsa as we put a lap here on Alex. This is his first motor race. He was doing a good job out there. It's actually one of the Saxos that I'd driven in the past as well. You can see from this shot here, it's the white and orange car. It used to be green in the hands of Marcus Bicknell, but it's changed its colours up now. And this was the last overtake of this race for us, as we're going to get past one of the Bradley brothers in this Golf. Now, they normally have green BMWs throughout their fleet, but unfortunately they weren't available today, or one of them wasn't available, so one of them was hiring out one of these Golfs and it was having some issues. So we got past him there, but it wasn't like he was putting up much of a fight. The car was having problems, so we got past, got up a position there, and then the following laps it was all about being consistent, because you can see behind me quite a big gap. So we got past the Golf the lap prior, and behind him there's about 5 or 6 seconds to the Seal group, Ian and James battling around with Alex Martin and a couple of other guys in there as well. So We had a decent gap at this point, and I was thinking, do I go for the Corsa? Do I go and get the overtake on him? I thought about it, and I was like, I probably can if I really push it here, but I don't want anything too silly. At the moment, I'm in the class lead. I don't need to do anything too stupid. I'll wrap up the class victory for this first race, put me in a good position for the second race there. So there's the checker flag. I managed my pace to the end there. My last sort of 5 or 6 laps weren't fully on it there, but I was doing some decent lap times behind the Corsa, so I thought I'll just take it, don't do anything silly, bring the car home, get the class victory, and go into the second race of the day in a good position to try and win this class championship. But drama behind me as Ian was actually hit quite severely by another driver. He would finish the race, but he had quite a bit of damage, and he would get out for the second race here, but maybe that knocked his confidence understandably, so that was going to be tough for him. So that meant that James would actually be the car behind me finishing on the road, so we'd start side by side on the grid, and then Ian would be a few positions further back. So a really big race coming up here. Here's me chatting with James pre-race, and then a quick fist bump. It's great to hang out with Ian and James throughout the season. A number of other drivers throughout the CMMCS as well, but I guess because they're battling with me in class, it's always going to mean a lot more when you have a good battle with them. It's always clean, fair racing, hard racing, as well as we proved at Snetterton. Me and James battling side by side for a number of laps. Also had some good battles with Ian as well this season, just throughout the year. So to go into this final race of the season, I guess you'd say technically just in the championship lead, but knowing that if you didn't win the championship, it would go to 2 great people. Either way, it was going to be, I guess, a good day. You know, it was great battling with them all season, so I knew it was going to go to a deserving driver at the end of the day. One of us 3, any of us deserved the championship at the end of the year. I guess we'd had a good season, all 3 of us. So I was hoping I'd bring home the victory as we started this last race of the day, but starting on the outside, never my favourite, and I was also quite wary about behind me. What was James, what was Ian going to do on this first lap of the race? You can see I'm slightly wide through Druids here. I think a car up the inside, I'm not exactly sure whether it was one of the faster drivers coming through, as you normally have this situation where there's always 3 or 4 drivers that started the first race near the front, then retired, now they're starting the second race from near the back. So let's focus our attention on what's happening behind here. So James is quite close, Ian is quite close. We're trying to catch up to the Corsa in front. So you can see a big dive from James here. I guess he put a lot of trust in me that I would see him coming, and I put some trust in him that I'm going to turn into this corner and he's not going to hit me. So what I mentioned just a minute ago about hard, fair, respectful racing, I can always guarantee that. I know there's not going to be contact between me and these other guys that I'm racing with. So I guess when you can trust that, you can always maybe make the corners when you weren't going to maybe make them before. So there's Martin Scott coming through. He's one of the quick cars that retired from the first race of the day, slightly putting that Corsa off track. But yeah, the battling with the Seals was good all season, and that's why I guess in my mind I knew I'd turn into this corner. James isn't going to hit me. I completely know what he's going to do here. So out of clearways, and it's side by side between these 2 cars in front. This Corsa is very quick in a straight line. I'm not catching it. I mean, you know what, you think a Honda Civic's top speed is pretty quick in terms of club racing, but this Corsa obviously modified quite extensively, managing to go well down the straight here, and if anything, maybe quicker than me in a straight line, which is seriously impressive. So then we see the Golf that we had a little overtake near the end of the race with at the first race of the day. He gets past after sourcing his issues from that first race of the day. He's storming his way through the field. So I'm starting to, I guess, put a bit of a gap on James here. So I knew at this point I need to get the overtake on the Corsa though, because I'm going to be able to get past him and then maybe get away, because I think my pace is better. So I was looking to the outside there of Panic Hill Bend. That's never really going to work out unless you have a significant pace advantage. I didn't want to dive it up the inside of Druids here because I knew he was going to be quicker through the corner and it'd probably get me on the exit as well. So at this point I was just trying to make my mind up about where I was going to go, and I think the main straight is probably the best one. If I get a good run out of clearways, I should hopefully be able to, with the slipstream, keep up with him and dive to the inside here. So let's see in this last part of the lap what we do, whether we're going to get this overtake in on the Corsa here. So I'm setting myself up for a better run through clearways, a slightly wider line through here, but it means that mid-corner speed is higher and we get a good run, and We get into the slipstream here as the courser, of course, as we saw a lap ago, is very quick in a straight line, but thanks to that slipstream, and he actually waves me through here on the inside here, and I give a bit of a thank you here. So I wasn't exactly sure what was going on here, whether he had an issue or what, but he let me through, and then I really got my head down because this was my quickest lap of the whole day, was the lap following the overtake on the Corsa. So not exactly sure exactly what transpired here. Still, on reflection, don't really understand what happened, whether he just let me through or what, but regardless, I'm happy to get past him and then get my head down and just go for it, because, you know, thank you there. I just need to keep my hands on the steering wheel quite a lot of the time, saying thank you to people I don't need to be saying thank you to. At the end of the day, it's racing, you can say thank you afterwards. So that's something I really need to just improve, really, is just that 100% focus on racing and pushing it to the limit, because I'm just, yeah, sometimes a bit distracted by, you know, pleases and thank yous, which I don't need to do whilst out on track all the time. So pretty clean lap there, and obviously it was my quickest lap of the weekend. I mean, from reflection, it doesn't seem like a particularly special lap after looking through all of the footage, but it was a decent chunk ahead of my next lap time, so I'm not exactly sure what happened, but regardless. So there's a retirement from one of the old Golfs there. And as I put to the left hand side, we also have a lap put on us by the WRC Escort of Rod Burley. So there we are, a little bit of action there, a retirement directly in front of us. I was wondering, is there any fluid out on track? And then getting lapped by Rod Burley. Now, then we get lapped by Paul Watson in his orange BMW. He's been back out in the last couple of rounds. Really happy for him, because he had a big shunt at the end of last season. Not his fault at all, just aquaplaning, and ended up in a big incident. But I'm really happy to see Paul back out there in his car and doing a really good job out there as always. So then we got a lap put on us by one of the cars that retired from the first race of the day, Ronan Bradley in his BMW. We get lapped by him, and now we're trying to put a lap on Alex once more. Of course, I mentioned earlier on, this was his first weekend of racing, so I wasn't obviously 100% sure what he was going to do, so I was just maybe being a little bit more cautious around him, whether he was going to go left or right down the straights. And we get past him, and I can see we pulled out a decent gap to the cars behind. We're going to get lapped by the Peugeot pretty soon, but a few laps later on, the final lap of the day, the final lap of the season. If I get this right, if I power through clearways correctly, I'm going to become class champion, as I put the double on here at Brands Hatch over James and Ian to take the class victories and the class championship. And you can see I'm pretty happy there. Double punch of the air, hand out the window, happy, relieved, exhausted. What a season. When you're preparing the car yourself, when it's just you and your dad on a race day, it's always slightly different to when maybe you're racing with a team. So always very special when I cross the line first in class. It means that we've managed to get it all together, because at the end of the day, myself and my dad, we're not, you know, mechanics. We don't really have all that expertise, so we're just doing as best as we can. So to pull it home, to win the race, I was so happy and relieved at the same time. Lots of people to thank this season. Of course, my dad being there at every event, my mum supporting me every time as well, John always being there at the races and always being there to provide some great quality content, and all of the CMMCS. Of course, special shout outs to everyone over at Supertune, Ian and James Seal, a pleasure to battle with all season long. What a season. Thank you so much for watching this, and we'll be back for the 2023 season shortly, sooner than you will expect. So thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you soon. Goodbye.